Years ago, if a boy was molested as a child, what would typically happen to him is he wouldn't say anything. If he did say anything, nobody would believe him. Matter of fact, if he said that he was molested by somebody, let's say his priest or Boy Scout leader or something like that, and he told his parents wouldn't believe him and sent him right back to the child molester. In the 1960s, if a man came forward and said, I was molested as a child, he was not only not believed, he was considered psychotic. So he would be put on antipsychotic medication, which of course would not remove that history. So he would still mention about it. And if he was in that much pain and now being drugged, he might wind up in a psychiatric hospital. I've had several men come forward for help who have not only been in a psychiatric hospital, they've also received electric shock therapy as a way of trying to get rid of this supposed false memory, that they have created this delusion that they were molested. In the 1960s here in America, we started to change as a society the way we dealt with people who were molested or raped. In the 60s, we had a movement towards freeing women up who had reported that they had been raped, so that if they went to trial against the rapist, they weren't put on the stand, they weren't dragged through the mud, that they weren't accused of being a whore or being in the wrong place at the wrong time, wearing the wrong clothing. Today, we are commending those who did not win their battle back then. In an interesting way, during the month of April, we wear a purple ribbon on our lapels, much like the ones for breast cancer and things like that. April is Child Sexual Abuse Prevention Month. And we talk about why denim. And one day of the month, we wear blue jeans. And the reason why we do that is to remember a case in Italy during the 60s where a woman was raped, and when it went to court, the defense for the man who raped her said that he could not have done it because she was wearing tight jeans. And how could he have possibly got these tight jeans off of her and raped her? And the court accepted that as a defense, and the rapist walked free. So we realized, wait, we've got to stop putting women on trial. Laura Davis and Ellen Bass, two of my colleagues from Santa Cruz, California, wrote The Courage to Heal. This was an incredible book because it actually gave tools to women what to do if they were raped or molested as to how to get past it. It also comes with a workbook that was groundbreaking. And for the few men who were willing to acknowledge to themselves that they were molested or raped, they could read it and get some help from it. However, it was not really addressed towards men. In the 1980s, we moved forward with this, and we really empowered women quite a bit, and we started to look at the issues of male sexual victimization. Back then, Dr. Hani Maletsky, a good friend of mine, wrote a book on mother-son incest. Groundbreaking in that it talked about that subject. However, the original version really was nothing other than a list of research papers and gave no help to anybody, unless if you were a scientist and you were at a university and you just wanted to look these things up. However, in the 1980s, some of us started talking more openly about it, and some of us started organizing groups for it. In 1985, there started to be some movement. A couple groups popped up. In 1995, the first groundbreaking book called Victims No Longer by Mike Lew came out. Finally, there was a book on the subject that really meant something, that addressed males directly. A book much like The Courage to Heal did for women, in that a male could pick this up and go, oh, that's me. Oh my God, yes, that's what I do. That's what happened to me. They could relate to it, and it gave them sound advice where to go from there. 2 years prior, here in Monterey, we started the men's group here. In 1993, when we started our men's group, it was considered to be maybe one of 5 anywhere in the world. It was a very, very rare group. However, we did not realize how rare it was. In 1997, I went to a conference on male sexual victimization, and after just working with this issue for a few years, I was expecting to learn quite a bit. I thought, all right, I'm going to hear all these people talk, and I'm going to come back home with all these tools. When I got there and people asked me why I was there, and I told them with my work, all of a sudden I was lumped into that small group of experts in the field. I started to realize it was very, very small. There were only a handful of people. The handful of people grew into a small organization called the National Organization on Male Sexual Victimization. Members such as myself started receiving newsletters, we started sending out articles to each other, we started having regular gatherings, and the gatherings were both for males who had been sexually abused, for therapists who worked with males who had been sexually abused, for therapists who worked with them and maybe were sexually abused themselves, not all of us have been sexually abused, and for women who are interested in the subject who maybe treat men. In 1998, we had the groundbreaking first of a kind in that I and Dr. Chris Moyers led a weekend retreat on a national level at the Mount Madonna Retreat Center above Watsonville, California, for males who had been sexually abused. And we had people come from all over the country. Moving along now, we're glad to say that we think that there's maybe 40 to 50 groups like ours somewhere in the world. That's wonderful. We actually have 5 now in California. We're spreading the word. However, that still leaves less than 1 per state. We also had the fortune of a misfortune in that when Michael Jackson was accused of being a pedophile, and when all the talk of the Catholic priests molesting kids, especially boys, came out, then people started to get it. Prior to that, we had to go to great lengths to educate the public, let them know, hello, boys are abused too. It's not just a girl thing. Men need some help. Nowadays, people are coming forward. People are listening to the stories. They want to know more about it. They want to find some healing.